I've done my keyword searches and I've evaluated the search results and kind of spent some time determining which ones would be good for me to explore further, what I do is I actually start to click on links, and then we need to evaluate that once we get there. So we're going to talk in this video about how to do that. First things first, you need to preview the site. So this is a quick skim to kind of determine what kinds of information would be best for you. Before we talk about that, though, I want to talk about things you need to consider between the mobile and the desktop. So a lot of us use our phones now whenever we're doing research. I mean, personally, I rarely use my actual desktop or laptop because I'm always with my iPad or my phone, and I really only use my desktop when I have to create information or documents as opposed to just consuming it. So when I use my phone or my iPad, some of the things that are going to be a little bit different between that and what I would pull up on my laptop. So for mobile formatting, when you look at your phone, there are usually bars or tiles instead of hypertexts. Hypertext are those like words that are colored differently that you know is a link to some other source or site. So lately, this has been since the explosion of smartphone technology, people have been moving towards bars and tiles instead of hypertext for mobile formatting because our fingers are a little too big to be clicking on those little tiny hypertext links. So that's something to consider, which for navigation purposes. Also would be expandable and collapsible menus. I'm going to show you those in a second, but these are desktop menus, usually are along the top or along the side, and it doesn't matter where you are in the site, you're going to have the same menu. It doesn't really work that way for mobile because you have smaller screen size, so these are usually things that the user can open or close, as you will, expand or collapse as you need them. When people are creating their websites, the mobile formatting usually should be more vertical. So because you have smaller screen space as far as the width of it, it's easier to navigate up and down and scroll versus the desktop where you're actually wider than you are long. So you can still scroll on a desktop, but you have a lot more width to work with for desktop formatting. Also to consider for mobile is if you're using the mobile version of the same site that you would see on a desktop, they have to really decide what they want to include as far as their multimedia, like if they're going to include videos or sounds and images because of the screen size and the screen resolution. So that's something if you're looking for those graphics and things like that, the desktop site is probably going to be much better for you. Something else to consider, it's much easier to focus on a phone or a laptop, or a phone or an iPad or tablet, I should say, because you can't really multitask in the same screen, although I know that's starting to change because on the laptop you can have multiple applications open and actually be staring at all of them at the same time. So that's something else to consider. Like, do I want to use my phone or do I want to use a laptop? So for instance, I'm going to look at this. This is the mobile version of Wikipedia. I already talked about me being diagnosed with this. So if I look at this mobile version, and here's an example with the menu pulled out. So you'll see on the left-hand side there is that 3 lines. That's the menu for me to be able to navigate that site. I have to actually physically touch that to open that up, because it takes up considerable screen space. So that's something to consider, because if I were to look at this site, you'll see that the entire menu is listed on the left-hand side, and that's there no matter where I go. It's going to have more that information regardless of what page. If I go back to that, you'll also notice that there are graphics along that they're very, very specific. and we have more information about the graphics on the wider screen. So this is an example of another mobile website. This is for the University of Pittsburgh, and you'll notice that there's a bar or tile called a menu instead of the 3 little lines. So if I tap that, that's what it pulls that up for the entire screen. So that's the entire screen. And the reason why they use the entire screen here is because, again, if I'm on a phone, I want to be able to physically touch it with ease and not be ended up 14 pages later figuring out where I finally wanted to go. But this is the actual website, and you'll see the menu across the top. So even though the images are similar, so it's the same content, it's just really the structure. You have to consider which is going to be easier for you to use, and which one would be easier for you to navigate. Again, real, concise. I only get one headline. The menu takes up the whole screen, versus I can see multiple things to be able to navigate. So, next, once you have decided whether or not you want to use the mobile sites or you want to use the desktop sites, the next thing you need to do is actually look at what is on the site. And in order to do that, you need to first remember what's your objective. Why are you doing research? So, and this is kind of a list of things or skills to look at and use when you look at an actual website. So, the first thing you want to do is look at the title of both the page and the site, and you want to consider, are they relevant? You know, is this really what you wanted? Then look at the menu options. Does it give you options to go to different parts of the site that would still be helpful to you? The next, you want to predict the link paths. I talked about hypertext links in the previous slide. They're usually blue. Words that are blue indicating that they will take you somewhere else. If I right-click on those, it should tell me where it's going to take me. And here's a really big tip. If you right-click on those links, it gives you the option to open in a new tab or a new window. I prefer to do that because then I don't actually leave the original site, and it's easier for me to navigate. Most of the time, websites will take, it's a direct link, so it'll just take you there instead of opening up a new window. So predicting that, like, is this going to, when I look at the words that are highlighted, are they relevant? Is this going to give me more information? Identifying the author or the sponsoring organization. Are you familiar with them? Have you heard of them before? Do they sound reputable? And then lastly, the internal search. Like, is it good? Like, if I'm reading through the different paragraphs, is this information actually helpful to me? And then the conclusion is, if it's good, then okay, now I got to actually use it. So let's use this for example. We're going to be reading the Odyssey at some point, so I think it would be good for us to talk about some Greek mythology, or for me to at least show this to you. So let's say I am going to use the strategies that I just talked about. So the first thing that I want to look at is the title. The title is Greek mythology, so that's relevant to my topic if I need to understand and learn that. If I look at the menu options at the top, I don't necessarily have a whole bunch that I could predict really quickly, other than maybe there are shows or other topics. So if I scroll through too, I see that we have video and lots of graphics. Then I see this link, and if I right-click on it, I could open that in a new tab. And it's going to take me to a different part of the same website and give me more information about that particular topic. So then I can look through this and see if okay, so that's good. I know that's going to be important. Sponsoring organizations, and since history.com, I'm pretty familiar with them, so I'm going to trust that that's probably going to be a good, their information is probably going to be pretty accurate. And then back to looking at those text figures. I have lots of video here. I have lists that I could use. The subheadings tell me how it's broken down. They want us to be factual. Okay, so I think this is probably going to be a good source for me. So once I decide that it's going to be a good source, the next thing I need to do is evaluate the content. And some of the things I need to consider for evaluating the actual content of the site is authority. Authority is who wrote it. Is that person well known in their field? Do they list like a list of things, background information or experiences? If there isn't an author listed, do they list how they got the information that they're putting there? If not, maybe it's not. If they're not giving that information, it might be a little shady. Next, of course, is relevance. Is it going to help you answer your research question or your objective? So back to looking at those titles and subheadings. And then objectivity. So is this a biased source or is this unbiased? Is this just to inform, or is this going to try to persuade me? So if I'm looking at authority, who wrote it? Are they an expert in their field? Can you contact him or her? If there isn't an author, just kind of went through this real quick. And then relevance. This is kind of the stuff that I went through there when I was talking a minute ago. You can pause here if you want to write those down. And then lastly, fact versus opinion for the whole objectivity. Fact is something that can be proven clearly, and it can be proven to be true or false. Even false facts are still facts because they can be clearly proven one way or another. Whereas opinion is something that is supported by facts. So that's kind of an important differentiation. Like, some people can throw out facts, and I could say 33% of my students don't bring their pencils to class. So that's a fact. Even if there's only one student who doesn't bring a pencil, or none of them bring a pencil to class, it's still a fact because it can be proven one way or the other. Additional things that we need to consider would be accuracy, currency, and coverage. For accuracy, you want to consider what claims is the author making. Are they going to be something real far-fetched? Do they support these claims? Can you confirm the information? An editor, by definition, is someone who verifies information. So do they have somebody listed that's backing them up? So typos and grammatical errors, I gotta tell you, I'm a big stickler for this, because if you don't take the time to proofread your website, you're probably not real worried about the accuracy of your information. So if there are a lot of typos and grammatical errors, I'm probably going to rule that site out. And then that works cited list it's kind of a list of where they got all of their information. When we talk about currency, we're talking about, like, how recently was it written? Is there a copyright date or an updated date? Recency is kind of important if, let's say, for example, we're talking about laws, or we're looking up health or medical information. Because if I want to research my hypothyroidism, I don't want to look at research from 1982. I want to look at information from 2016, 2017. Also, for currency, do all the links work, or are they expired or moved? Because if they've expired or moved, that means nobody's really keeping watch on that website. So it's probably not going to be as beneficial. Your next independent task is to pick an objective. And I'm going to give you a list of those objectives in a second. So after you pick an objective, you are going to build off of what we've already done. You're going to brainstorm your keywords, consider what Boolean terms will help you in your search, evaluate your search results like we talked about before, where you're going through the blurb and you're looking at what the link is, and then you are going to go through and evaluate the sources just like we talked about. Preview the site. If it's a good site and you decide you're ready to use it, look at authority, look at relevance, look at objectivity, look at currency, look at content. Then you're going to choose them, okay? So if I look at all these things and I've evaluated everything and I think this is a good source, I'm going to actually use it, okay? So what you're going to do is you are going to need 6 sources. 1 that is neutral, 2 that counter what your objective is asking, and 3 that confirm it. And then for each source, you need the author's name, the title of the article, the title of the site, and the date it was published. You need a 5-line summary, and you need 4 notes, minimum, you can always go above, that are relevant to your objective. Okay? So you're going to need 6 total sources to basically prove your objective. And there are 5 objectives you can choose from. I'm going to throw those up on the board for you right now. Okay? So you can decide to research a particular health topic, and you name it, in order to make the following changes. Okay, so you want to learn about this because you want to be able to what? Second option, learning about a possible career choice, and you name what career choice you want to research in order to, and there are 3 options on this one. Begin preparing for it, make a choice to pursue it, or to convince somebody that you should or should not pursue it. Third option, if you want to learn about a specific political topic, you name it, because you want to challenge your current beliefs, and then in that spot you talk about what beliefs you want to challenge. Fourth, learning about a financial topic, and you name it in order to financial goal. Like if I want to save money for blah blah blah. And then the last option, learn about a social justice topic, and you name it there in order to make a change, and then you name what change that you're trying to make. Once you decide that is when you're going to go and you're going to do your keywords, and you are going to do some Boolean words, like think about what will help, evaluate the search results, evaluate the sources, and then once you pick your sources, those 6 sources are going to help you answer that question.